Good morning. My name is Josephine LoRe, and I would like to share with you a series of poems written this summer. And I have to give you a trigger warning because they are around the passing away of my father. So they're poems that express and explore my grief. I come from Calgary, Alberta, and that is the traditional and ancestral lands of a number of diverse Indigenous groups whom I would like to acknowledge and thank. I would like to thank them for having brought culture and language and poetry to this land. And the groups include the Piikani, the Siksika, the Kainai, Nakota, Tsuut'ina, their antecedents and their descendants. The first poem was written this summer. My father was 90, and I was getting ready to say goodbye to him at the end of a visit, and I knew that he did not have very long. He knew us as well, that he did not have very long. So the prompt was from Robert Frost, actually. When to the heart of man was it ever less than treason to go with the drift of things, to yield with a grace to reason, and bow and accept the end of a love or a season? So this excerpt by Robert Frost inspired me to write To Sit Quietly. Such treason to sit quietly with death, to not shake his cold grip from my arm, to know he waits expectant in the hall, my father's ragged exhalation tainted by his breath, my father's face grown gaunt, teeth missing from his skull, fingers spectral, and sometimes he sees us dimmed, as if only from afar, a figment of himself, wavering between this realm and next, like bedsheets waving in the wind. Photographs bring heaves and tears as he recalls the young man he once was. He moans in his sleep and he talks in his dreams. Emaciated legs no longer hold his withered frame. He winces when I tend his wounds, but brightens when he says my name, and I think death must mean no great harm, for 90 is a long time upon this earth. So I no longer resent the tender touch of that which I no longer dread. But oh, what anguish to sit quietly with death and not shake his cold grip from my arm. And that poem was published by Billy Brown in the Fixed and Free Quarterly Anthology out of New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, as was the next piece that I would like to share. This one was written after my father passed, and I was in a writing circle. And I have to say, thankfully, poetry has given me a way to express my feelings and to take something as raw and as incomprehensible as grief and give it, I don't know if it's meaning, but at least give it release. 9:30. It is 9:30. My body says sleep. My mind says rest. My heart steps out into the night, leaving the door wide in search of the call of coyote. If I had a slingshot and 7 smooth stones, 5 smooth stones, even 3, I would pluck the streetlights from the sky, one by one, so that all that would be left would be the cold moon and me. I no longer care about the stars. Their stories no longer matter. The chatter of man, the warmth of fire in fields, none of it. There is a place in my father's garden, a bower of figs, and when I stood in it, sunlight filtered through various spots as if our sky held multiple suns. That was the day after my father died. It is 9:34. I looked at the clock and noticed when 24 hours had slipped by after his death. He passed at 00:18. Time has become an accordion with only sad strains stretching out and tumbling past. It has been 6 days since he passed, 30 hours since his body was jacklifted into a maw, sealed with putty and trowel and drill. My father had a trowel just like that. He too used tools. I had gone down to the garage into one of those balsa wood baskets which once held summer tomatoes, tucked one of my father's tools into my tote for the funeral home in case I needed to feel him. A wrench. And I tucked a few nails into the pocket of his best suits, some loose change, for he always had nails in his pocket when he worked. A carpenter, like the Father of Christ, nails and coins sometimes fell out of his pockets when he lay down to nap, and when I was tasked with vacuuming the couch cushions on a Saturday morning, I would find them, quarters and pennies and nickels and dimes, and always a pencil tucked behind his ear, a smile on his face as broad and brilliant as the Sicilian sky. It is now 9:38. I felt his spirit surround me while his lungs still expanded and emptied and his pacemakered heart still beat. His hands still warm. That was before his forehead felt like he had just been taken out of deep freeze. When I brought my lips to his brow in the casket, I cupped his head with both hands. He didn't like to be cold. Gomogliami, he would implore. Cover me, please. He asked so little of me at the end. His spirit hovering just past 4 that afternoon, my kids coming in after a day-long travel, me at the entrance of the hospital breathing real air for the first time in days. I felt him, and I felt his peace. And if I sit quiet for a moment, I can still feel it, but will it fade like the taste of salt from the sea, the aroma of coffee, that hug that feels like it could go on forever, if only we could stand still enough. I do not know. It is 9:42. The next poem in the series is called Bereft. In that photograph, you are standing on Nono's knees, pajamaed feet, his hands encircling you, steadying you. You, the first boy in the family after 3 daughters, 3 granddaughters, the first boy. He was 62. This photo tucked into the frame of the tapestry which fills his study wall. You flew back with your beloved, wanting her to know your nonno to know her. He could not attend your wedding, sickness stealing strength, so I asked him to make a video recording shared with you the morning of your marriage. He had met his beloved at a wedding when he was just 18, sang her the serenade beneath a window in the old Sicilian style. Weeks after your wedding, you flew back with your bride to stand at his bedside, his withered hand in yours. When you were a child, you would place the palm of your hand against mine, pulse to pulse, to see how much you needed to grow. Your fingers lengthening with the years, now longer than my own. I stood at my father's casket. You encircled me in your arms, allowing me to cry, steadying me. I am 60 now, a daughter, a mother, bereft, consoled. That piece has been published in Word City Lit, and the next piece is called Liminalities, and it is going to be published by the League of Canadian Poets in the Fresh Voices series in 2023. Liminalities, and it's a visual poem as well as a poem to listen to, so there's the shape of it. My sister held your hand as you drew your last and told me your touch faded finger by finger until only in her pinky and then gone. But Papa, I feel you differently. In the dawn air drawn into lungs, newborn sky, strisce di bianco in un cielo azzurro, strips of white in an azure sky, a flurry of sparrows rising into beech tree, and echoing your whistle, il fischietto del cardinale, the call of the cardinal. And the last poem is called Grief. Maybe the most difficult of all. We stood and watched them, entombed my father, a luminous casket, a crucifix, a jacklift, a drill. My father too used tools and in the end was sealed into a faceless wall, marble, making its water journey from Italy, awaiting his name, date of birth, death, some sentimental words. Can a sentence ever contain an ocean of loss? Relatives came to his bedside, diminished, the funeral home lily-laced, the church a baptism of frankincense and myrrh, an oxygen-starved crypt in which copper vases spill silken flowers, and plush bears decorate the graves of those who died too soon. Relatives filled those solemn rooms, one for each of his 90 years, all wearing black as if the color of creation were absorbed by a darkening sky, a starless night. At the epicenter, my mother, reduced. We gathered to grieve my father, and I stand to the side, wordlessly grieving my mother, her brain eroding, memories washed off the beach of her consciousness like starfish and seaweed and those little shelled creatures we would gather as children, carried out to sea by the ebbing tide. Thank you very much for listening, and go and do something beautiful with your day and make sure you let your loved ones know what you feel for them. Okay, this has been Josephine LoRe. Thank you very much.